I would just like to get a quick recap of our previous meetings. So this is the Best Way program that was actually developed by Dr. Elvin Adam. He is a master's in public health and an internal medicine doctor. And he developed this, and it has been used for over 50 years, even in outside of the U.S. So it rests in 4 foundations, pillars. One is nutrition, blood-forward eating, and the timing of how we eat. And then number 2 is exercise, physical activity. And then 3 is behavior change, behavior modification. We try to develop a good choice every day, to exercise good choice every day so we can develop a healthier habit. And number 4 is building spiritual strength. Okay? So on the second class, we talk about how exercise, as little as walking 30 minutes a day, 5 to 7 days a week, can actually decrease the heart attack by 50 to 54%. And do you remember that there is, we don't overexert, so there is a safety number for our pulse rate. You remember that? Anyone remember? It's 180 minus your age. So that's your, heart rate where you want to be. But for those people that are still not able to walk even 5 minutes or much more 30 minutes, you can start where you are. You can do seated exercises. You can do just standing every hour, right? While you're awake during the day. So start where you are. And then the third class was about carbohydrates. Was it carbohydrates? No, it was about fat. Good fat. Essential fat. We even call it essential fat that we need to eat every day because our body cannot make it. And those are omega-3 and omega-6. The good sources are the nuts, walnuts, almonds, flax seeds, chia seeds. Those are good essential fat that our body needs. And then the fourth class was about carbohydrates. We are not to be afraid of carbohydrates because they are the main source of our fuel, glucose. But we do need to pay attention that the carbohydrates that we're eating are not refined. They are whole and complex, right? Like brown rice, sweet potato, and the good stuff. And today, we're going to be talking about protein. So, especially the protein myth, right? How much protein do we really need to eat every day? Do you need to eat complete protein every meal? Or what about protein powders and protein drink? Will it build muscles or strong bodies? So, proteins are billions of protein in the human body. Muscles are protein. Bones are protein with calcium added. Antibodies, our immune system, are made of protein. Every cell has protein structure. Proteins are very complex. Proteins are widely in size and shapes. There are over 20 amino acids in the body. Only 9 are essential. Do you know what is that? What does it mean when it says essential amino acids? The body cannot make it. We need to eat it, right? So the body recognizes its our own protein, okay? And it rejects outside protein. So what does it mean? The protein that we eat, it needs to be broken down into single amino acids before it should get into our bloodstream. Otherwise, if it's partially digested protein or broken down, it can create an immunologic or an allergic reaction into our body, actually can cause autoimmune diseases like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis or psoriasis, right? Because proteins need to be, I need to emphasize this, very well digested before it goes into our bloodstream as amino acid. So where does protein's digestion start? In the stomach. And what is in the stomach that actually starts the breaking down of protein? Acid, hydrochloric acid. So our body is again made wonderfully. When we start to smell food, we start to chew food, the acid in the stomach starts to build up to get ready to break down that protein. But you know what common society is doing now? When they have the symptoms of hyperacidity brought about by chronic smoking, drinking alcohol, drinking coffee, chronic stress, high fatty foods, it can cause hyperacidity or excessive acid in the stomach. And we go to the doctor, we give the patient antacid, Protonics. Have you heard about that medications, right? Omeprazole. And the patient's supposed to just stay on that medication for 7 to 14 days and get rid of the things that causes acid. But the people are just buying these medications now because it's over the counter and just taking the antacid, and now they don't have acid. And so when they eat protein, which a lot of people are so hung up on eating big amount of protein, then it can be detrimental to the body. So if anyone is taking antacid, got to talk to the doctors about how in the ways that you don't have to take it every day. Okay, just a reminder, this is not a talk that will diagnose or treat your diseases, okay? This is just an information. And then if you have any diseases that I'm talking about, we got to talk to your doctors and find a way how to get it better, together with the healthier lifestyles that we are trying to develop here, okay? So, these are the essential amino acids. We don't really have to take them every day because our body is wonderfully made. You can eat certain amounts of this one day and then another in the other day, another type of essential amino acids, and the body will store it for you and make it for you for whatever protein you need. So, for instance, this is the basic structure of an amino acid chain, okay? They are this group here. I'm missing a slide. All right, this is a simple structure of 2 amino acids linked together here, and when they are linked together, they produce water. So amino acids are also important in water balancing in the body. And this is an example of an hormone that is insulin produced in the body. When they are linked together with sulfur bands. And this is an example of albumin, the protein in the body. See how beautiful it is. It's supposed to be a long chain, but then they bend and curve to make a beautiful 3D image of like this. So every dot here is an amino acid. So amino acids form into long chains to whatever your body needs, to turn it into a hormone, to turn it into an antibody.
Is that in the bloodstream or is that in the tissue?
this one is in the bloodstream, the albumin. And so if you need a protein to be built into a bone or into a muscle, all the amino acids that we eat will be built into that. So I always have this question with my patients, like, Dr. Florida, eating plant protein does not contain complete protein, right? So, but the body don't actually need complete protein ever, because our body is meant to build your own protein. So when we eat the complete protein from another animal, your body gets not to do its job of actually building your own protein. So when we do build our own protein, it's really just for you, unique for your own. Because we know that we are unique individual, right? Okay. We'll talk more about that in the next slide. So proteins is not stored for future use. That's why we don't really need to eat a lot of protein. Right. But what do we need to eat more? That should be the most of what we eat are carbs, because carbs are stored as fuel in our body. But when we eat extra protein, it's actually stored as fat. Okay? There is high recommendations now for most, bodybuilders or people who wants to lose weight to eat more protein. In my practice, I don't recommend it. No. Because excess protein does not turn into muscles. It actually turns into fat. Okay? Wow. So muscles, on the other hand, when the patient that are sick, bedridden, and don't eat enough protein, the muscles are being used to make those essential protein. So we see that when you're sick, you lose muscles.
So it's taking the protein from the muscle to use it for the rest of the...
To use for antibodies, to use for everything else that you need. So isn't that wonderful how our body's made? Yeah. It can compensate. Otherwise, you die in 1 to 2 days, right?
So when you work out, say if you want to bodybuild, you're trying to use your natural body enzymes to build muscle.
So
it only can use what you put it in it to make the muscle grow to a certain expansion. It won't grow no more, because usually bodybuilders want to grow more than their body can produce.
Right. So when you do really, intentionally build a certain muscle, you build that muscle not just by eating adequate amount of protein, but you build it by actually straining the muscle. When you strain the muscle with weights and resistance exercise, you build a structure for the muscle to build on.
So it heals, and then you got to break it down.
Yeah, you have to break down, create a little bit of inflammation within the muscles by straining it, and then it will be the building block where the protein will be. So eating just protein without exercise, without resistance or weight training, does not build muscles. Okay? So proteins, it says here, proteins does not really change as with any activity. It's almost the same. But to your point, it's almost the same when you are doing regular activity. But when you specifically build a certain muscle, you do need to eat more than the usual for daily basic activity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just, because the weight world teaches you a little different. I always used to say, I didn't like using protein drinks or creatine and all that stuff.
Yes.
I believe that the body will build itself as big as what you usually eat naturally, and it won't go no farther because the body is not asking for that. There's no need for that. It just makes you stronger, maybe, but
yes,
it doesn't build bigger muscles like most people want.
Yes. So do you really need that for aesthetic purposes? That's what you're saying. Do your body really need it? But for some aesthetic purposes, they want to really bulging muscles.
Right.
But do you really need it?
Do you really need it? Because
right.
the body only going to grow as big as
Right.
The body will allow you, if you do it natural. Now, if you do it the other way, like we were taught, it will extend itself because you're adding that protein that the body's not asking for.
That's right. That's right. But there are certain instances in a natural body's need that there is more need for protein. That's when you are growing and pregnancy. Okay, so those are the
That's natural stuff.
yeah, absolutely. So how much protein do we really need? Okay, so this is interesting because the body, how much we put out should be how much we put in for protein. And the way they did it in measuring how much is measuring the nitrogen balance, the process of weighing the amount of nitrogen ingested in the diet against the amount of protein or nitrogen wasted in the kidney. So typically we collect a 24-hour urine and look how much nitrogen, which is a byproduct of protein metabolism. And that's how much a regular person needs. So they found out that it's only 25 grams of protein that is actually needed to keep a person in normal nitrogen balance, normal function, okay? So 25 grams, this is the amount of protein that is only, when you use meat, it's only maybe a 1/4, one bite, one big bite, 25 grams of protein. But to be on the safe side, even the the World Health Organization even multiply that by 50. So they recommended 50 grams of protein for men and about 46 grams of protein for women. So that's actually very, very small amount, okay? But how much do we as American, consumption? They found out that most are actually eating 113 grams of protein, okay?
Wow.
And we are actually eating twice than what the World Health Organization initially recommended, right? 50 grams of protein. And we eat more than 4 times what we actually need because the World Health already just multiplied by 2 to be safe, 25 into 50, right? So what are the common sources of protein? And the biggest source is animal protein. Plant 30%, okay? So let's do an analysis between plant protein and beef, for instance. So for every 100 grams of black-eyed peas versus 100 grams of the steak, okay? So you see, black-eyed peas has more water, which is essential for our body, and it has less calories than the steak. And look at that, it has also protein, okay? Although 100 grams of beef has 24 grams of protein, more than 100 grams of peas, and then look at the fat content. What is sirloin? Isn't this a lean meat? But even if it says lean, it still has 32 grams of fat, okay? And look, it has 21 grams of carbs, which is what our body needs as fuel, right? But 0 here and fibers. Remember, fibers is our friend to sweep away that excess fat or excess buildup of plaque in our system, right?
So a whole pot of black-eyed peas is good, huh?
Mm-hmm. So that is kind of uneven comparison, right? 100 grams of meat and 100 grams of black-eyed peas. But how about if we compare it calorie per calorie? So for every 100 calories of black-eyed peas and 100 calorie of beef, let's take a look. That's a better way of looking into the nutrients, right? Every calorie, how much nutrients are in there. So you see, water in black-eyed peas is more. look at the calories. See, this is a really even comparison, right? But look at the protein. Per calorie of black-eyed peas, you actually have more protein. Can you believe that? That is how God created the plant protein to be perfect, right? And look, carbs, the one that we need too for fuel, and the fibers. Perfect food. It has everything that we need, right? So now, let's look into cabbage. Our lowly cabbage, cheap and very easy to grow. What do we have in cabbage here? So when we compare cabbage, 100 grams again, you got all the good stuff, right? But look, it still has protein. Do you think who has here an idea that cabbage has protein before this? Oh. All foods has protein, that's right. So, but, 100 grams of beef typically has more grams of protein. But let's compare it again with calorie per calorie. Look at the protein. It's not as bad, right? So even though it has only 4.6 grams of protein, but it has the good carbs, it has the fibers, and let me tell you, for those who really want to lose weight and decrease the plaque in the arteries, cabbage, the cruciferous vegetables, cabbage, kale, collards, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, they have a chemical called indole. Indole has been studied in animal studies that it actually reduces the fat storage, decreases the inflammation, and prevent black plaque formation. So it's not just the protein here, but you know what? It's not here in meat at all. There's no indole, there's no carbohydrates that's good for us, there's no fibers, okay? So, calorie per calorie, most vegetables are equivalent to meats in terms of protein and the other nutrients and vitamins and carbohydrates that our body actually needs, okay? So, let's look at beans and this steak here. Look at the vitamin C, the vitamin B1, folic acid, vitamin A. It's so much higher than the steak. Although the steak has more of B2, but it still is here in the beans. But that is how much our body needs. We don't need that much, that three times higher of B2 anyway in the body. Okay?
My chili back.
So, there is enough protein in every person's diet. You don't have to worry about protein. And you know what the advertisements that you see all the time in commercials? Eat more protein. Eat more protein. And actually, when you see people, when you say protein, automatically it means meat. Okay? They will ask me, where will I get my protein, Dr. Florida, if you don't want me to eat chicken, fish, or meat? Okay? But thank goodness we have this to learn, right? So, my slides is not, okay. So, we are comparing here plant protein and animal and dairy protein. It's mostly complete and you don't have to worry because your body again will just get those amino acids that it needs and make the specific protein that your body needs. But when you eat the complete protein from meat, from animal product, your own processing, your own unique protein, you don't need to use it anymore. You go getting the animal protein from the animal itself. So I think it is in the spirit of prophecy you may have someone to find it for me and tell me about it next time, that the more we eat of animal protein, the behavior of the person becomes that of an animal.
Yes, it does.
Please find that quotation for me, because I did not get a chance. But you know, it's when you do animal protein, it's a second-hand protein because it's coming from the animal. But when you eat plant protein, it's first-hand because you make it, your body make it yourself. Okay? So for those people who are used to eat animal protein, the first time that they stop eating animal protein, their body will become sluggish first because their body is not used to building their own material now because they were so dependent from the complete protein, okay? And the worst thing about animal protein, it's high in fat that raises the bad cholesterol. That's why it's high risk in heart attacks, right? And some of them carry diseases too, especially if they're not well cooked.
Now, ain't that also because it's in the blood of the protein more than it's in the meat of the animal?
I'm not following.
The protein that people get from eating animal, is it more in the blood or is it more in the meat itself? Because they don't kosher most animals. They leave
Yes.
the blood inside of the animal.
I have not really looked into it, but it could be. But either ways, it's from the blood or from if it's a deceased animal, it's a deceased animal.
Right.
Okay. So the take-home message is eat a variety because our body can build our own specific protein. It's like a customized, customized truck for you, all right? So extra protein does not build muscles, but if you don't exercise, but it actually is more detrimental for the liver and the kidney. And especially if the patient already has kidney or mild kidney disease, we should not be overloading that with protein. Why? Because everything that we eat gets filtered into the kidney. So you're just making your kidney work harder. So there is actually a study between patients with chronic kidney disease, and they are assigned to eating animal protein and plant protein. The animal protein group actually developed into a kidney failure because they're overworking the kidney. Okay? So take home message, don't worry about protein because whatever you're eating, there is protein adequate enough for our needs. So calories from animal is very dense or high. So when we are trying to lose weight, we have to pay attention also of the calories, okay? Low calorie but high nutrient dense. So that's why, remember, nuts, we only need to eat 5 to 10 pieces at a time if you are wanting to lose weight. Avocado, 1/4 to 1/2 at a time if we are losing weight. But if you have reached your ideal weight, you can eat more because your body knows to absorb only what you need, okay? So, but the calories from vegetables, they are very low and they have the right amount that we need. Okay, this is a study that shows us that the more meat in the diet, the greater the risk of developing colon cancer. There is a 70% increase of the risk of when we eat more up to 2 pounds. This is up to 2 pounds of meat. And this study, results of a very, very important study. In this study, the authors look at the amount and type of meat eating in the diet and the risk of dying. What makes this study so important is that it involved over 500,000 people creating extremely stable and accurate results. This was published in the Internal Medicine, Archives of Internal Medicine in 2009. So ages 50 to 71, all right? 6 states, 2 metropolitan areas, 300,000 men, 220,000 women, and they are controlled because when you do a study, you cannot really compare if one is smoking and the other is not smoking. So in this way, they control that. In certain cases, they have a way of controlling it, okay? So we can get a better uniform result. So in the study, they classify red meat that includes beef, pork, ham, hamburger, steak meats in lasagna and chili, okay? So, and white meat is including fish, turkey, low-fat hot dogs made from poultry, and processed meats include, we know bacon, sausage, luncheon meats. And they did a study that the more meat, this is quintile 1 when they're only eating 9.3 grams of meat, and then quintile 5 is a group of the people that are eating 6 to 8 grams of protein. And as you see here, the more they eat meat, the less they eat fruit and vegetables, okay? So it compounds the problem. We need fruits and vegetables for our vitamins, minerals, and all other good stuff. But as people eat more meat, they naturally decrease the amount of fruits and vegetables. Why? Because when they eat the meat, they want to eat more, and then they don't have room for vegetables anymore. So it compounds the problem more. So they found out that people that are eating more meat, the risk of dying is 48% more. Can you imagine that? And cancer mortality, 44% more than in this group. So they are comparing this among the meat eating. What if they compare this with a vegetarian protein? Well, this risk will go up higher. Do you follow?
Yeah.
So heart disease and stroke, 44% more compared to the ones that are eating 9.3 grams. So if our friends and family cannot stop eating meat, maybe encourage them to minimize it and add more plant protein, okay? Because there are just people that you cannot convince to give, I cannot give it up, Dr. Florida. It's like, okay, you can compromise, eat a little, but add more healthful foods. So all mortality in men by grams of the higher again. Well, it's an interesting study though, because if they were eating white meat, the mortality doesn't really increase as much as red meat in this study, okay? So let's look at the same thing in women. So it looks the same. The more meat, the less serving of fruits and vegetables, which compounds the problem again. So mortality in women by red meat, 63% higher the more you eat red meat. And cancer mortality, 42% more compared to those eating less amount of meat. But again, what if we compare this with a vegetarian protein? This will probably go sky high more. So heart disease and stroke, the same thing, 84% increase compared with less amount of red meat. And when they eat white meat, it doesn't grow as high. So that's why people are eating more chicken, especially the Chick-fil-A commercial, right? Eat more chicken. So they think that, in this study, it showed that it has less mortality. But I tell you, with my experience with patients in obesity, they are more having trouble losing weight because of the excess hormones that these chickens, because people are eating more chicken, right? So the company, the producer, the industry needs to produce more chicken. And it used to be chickens are ready for selling at 45 days. Now they're selling it at 21 to 28 days. How can they make that produce more? By giving more hormones. And those hormones are actually contributing to the excess body fat or disruption of the body and getting more sickness. So even though in this study, white meat does not show as bad as red meat, but in other areas, especially with weight loss and diabetes, it's a big problem. So conclusion, red and processed meat intake were associated with increase in total mortality and cancer mortality and cardiovascular disease. But this should be, don't eat red meat. It increases your risk of mortality, cancer, and stroke, right? But if our friends and family and ourselves, if we cannot give it up, just maybe eat a little to decrease the risk. But if you want to zero out your risk, don't eat it. So meat, this is another study, meat and pancreatic cancer. So the same thing, eating more meat, 87% increase chance of having pancreatic cancer. Colon cancer, 24% higher compared to the ones eating less. Cancer, liver cancer, same thing. So death from esophagus cancer, the higher the grams of this one, the higher the risk. I guess we all get the even stomach cancer. Leukemia, blood cancer is also higher the more we eat red meat. Okay? So diseases from red meat, we find out that it's not just heart disease, also stroke, colon, pancreas, stomach, esophagus, liver, and even leukemia. So every chronic diseases like this is preventable if we avoid meat and eat protein from plants. So this is a study in UK. 490,000 participants followed for the 8 years. And the study is looking at dementia, okay? And especially Alzheimer's dementia, the worst type of dementia. And we also have vascular dementia. When you have a little bit of stroke, that's what we call vascular dementia, okay? So in this study, if they eat processed meat more than 5 times a week, so meaning every day, the risk of dementia is 69% higher. The Alzheimer's bad type, okay? And if for vascular dementia, 76% higher. So that's one serving. What is a one serving of processed meat? Two strips of bacon. But when me and my family used to eat bacon, it's a pack, almost 1 pack of bacon for our son, for my husband, right? So how much higher if you eat that every day? 76% higher. So this is another study, the Adventist Health Study 2. 81,000 men and women followed for 9 years. So these studies are really good because it's a long time, right? So 2,200 deaths from heart attack and stroke. And the population is divided into categories from where their source of protein is. So this is very timely for our topic of protein now. So if they eat low protein as a baseline, and the higher the protein, the higher the heart attack if it's coming from meat. So consistent with what we find out earlier, right? So, but if you eat high protein from plants, nuts, and seeds, the risk of dying from heart attack is decreased. It's totally reversed, right? So this is another study of 29,000 participants, averaging 50 men and women, 17 years, looking at heart attacks and strokes. So that is about eggs, because sometimes eggs are a good source of protein too, right? But if you eat more eggs, 2.5 eggs per day, your risk of heart attack is 30% higher. And dying, 40% higher. So the question is, what then should we eat for protein, right? So Fred here is saying that every food has protein. So in this picture here, these are the essential amino acids here and the non-essential amino acids. So look at the animal protein. So that's the said complete protein, right? But look at beans. They almost look the same. Even grains, brown rice, quinoa, they have all the essential amino acids. Nuts and seeds, vegetables, even fruit has protein. Can you imagine how wonderful it is that every food that God made has protein on it? So have you heard about the combination to get a complete set of amino acids, essential amino acids? The most common one that I've heard from the Blue Zone is combination of beans, squash, and corn. When you combine that in a cooking, you get the essential amino acids. But the latest research showing is you don't even have to combine it. If you eat the beans on Monday, and you eat the corn on Wednesday, and you eat the squash on Friday, your body is so intelligent that it can actually combine that and make it into the protein that you need, like your hormones, for instance. So you don't even have to really eat that together. As long as you eat that, you consume those proteins in a week. So, conclusion, don't focus on protein foods because every food that God made actually has protein. Extra protein is harmful to the kidneys and even to the liver. Yes, ma'am.
So does it matter what kind of squash, like butternut versus zucchini versus, are they all equal?
I did not really look into that.
Okay, I just was curious.
Yeah, but you can maybe search it. But yeah, so animal protein foods are high in fat that contributes to bad cholesterol, directly linked to heart attacks and strokes. Red meat kills in several ways. We saw cancer, stroke, heart attack, leukemia. Plant protein foods are low in fat. Plant proteins are overall protective. So that's the end of our protein section today.
Amen.
Any questions?
I have one question about the eggs. Are they boiled, fried, or scrambled? Does it matter?
Well, when you fry it, you get an extra fat there. Again, when you boil it, it's less fat, but when you compare that, boiled is better. But when you scramble it with vegetables, that trumps the boiled egg. Or when you eat the boiled egg together with vegetables and fruits, it makes it better. And when you want to eat eggs, I would recommend limit it to 1 to 2 in a week. Because you see there, when you eat more, the risk is higher. And when you eat eggs, try to get it the organic one without the added hormones, antibiotics, and pesticides.
That's what I was getting ready to say.
So if here in North Carolina, almost everyone has a space. So if you can raise your own chickens, that is even better, right? And you can feed your chickens not the corn feeds, but your scraps. So you can recycle, right? And you make them be exposed in the sun, and make them eat grass and worms and, so it could be healthy.
Okay.
Right, so 1 to 2 eggs a week and pairing it with vegetables,
And that's-
greens, beans.
And that's even the healthy ones. It's
Yes.
Still 1 to 2.
Yeah, even the healthy ones, 1 to 2 eggs, because it's high in fat. So, yes, good question.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I'm curious, when I was a kid, they always said like 4 ounces of meat is the serving of protein. When did that switch to 2 to 3 ounces?
Actually, it is even more now, because they actually they recommended protein depending on the age, depending on the sex, but now they recommended 1 gram per kilogram to 1.2 gram per ideal body weight, which unfortunately I do not subscribe. Again, I believe in this by Dr. Elvin Adams, that the less protein you get, especially from meat, because it's actually more taxing to the liver and the kidney. But when you eat it with, and the other thing is acid-base balance. The protein from meat or animal product is acidic, right? And the hype of getting alkaline water to to make the body less acidic. Guess what? The plant protein is the opposite of acid. So that's why when you concentrate more on protein from plant, it actually makes your body alkalinized. When you buy alkaline water, when you drink it, it is neutralized by the acid in your stomach. You're not really alkalinizing your body. You're just wasting your money. But when you eat the plants, especially the plant protein, it's naturally alkaline. So that's why it's less toxic to the kidneys.
So speaking of wasting your money, did you test the ionization product?
Mixed review. I will tell you later. All right. Any other question? You can answer the handouts together in the group, because
Right.
it should be in the Health First manual. And then I will give the floor now to Pastor William for our spiritual talk.